Welcome to our second discussion on empowerment. My name is Heidi Palende, and I am here with my life coach and Qigong master, Lama Tantrapa.
Thank you, Heidi, for introducing me, and thank you for joining us for this brief exploration of empowerment. And today we wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the issue that probably challenges and bothers some of us, and that is anxiety. Mm-hmm. Essentially, it's one of those things that kind of sits on the back burner of many people's consciousness, but creates enough havoc in their lives that it eventually boils over and creates such a turbulence that we realize we have to handle it somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
What was your experience with it?
So, we're talking about anxiety today because I have really known anxiety, and I know that many of you that know anxiety as very, very painful. For myself, at the beginning of the year, I could barely breathe. I had so much anxiety within my body, it was difficult to breathe. And I was trying to control things outside myself. I was needing people to behave in a certain way for me to be comfortable. I was needing, really it was my daughter. So if you're a parent like I am and you are parenting a challenging daughter or son, it's painful when you think that you know what's best for them and you want them to do this, this, and this, and you're trying for them to be happy. You want them to be happy. And they're not following your recommendations, of course, because they have their own ideas, and she is now 19. She can do whatever she wants. But when I am trying to get her to do something, it causes me pain because she's not going to do it. And I realize that I'm the one causing my own pain. And my great gift to myself this year is letting go of the need to control her, the need for her to be something that she's not.
How did you develop that transition from anxiety associated with the desire to control things to where you're at right now?
Okay, I am so glad you asked. It is acceptance. It's coming to a place of realizing that there is nothing that needs to change outside of myself. That my daughter is in her perfect expression. She is in her perfect place in her life right now where she needs to be. She is blossoming the way that she's supposed to blossom. And when I judge her process is wrong or off kilter or not in the right timing, I've just created my own pain because she's in her own place and I can't control her process.
And you know what anxiety feels like. You might have experienced it yourself, have you not? This is an exaggerated form of worries and concerns about the future. In essence, it's a form of a daydream.
Yes.
But it's a daydream about things we don't want to experience. We focus on things we don't resonate with. Mm-hmm. And by doing so, we actually give energy to them. Mm-hmm. We literally empower those scenarios that we don't want to happen to actually happen.
Yeah.
Often it also leads to suffering in the present moment. So in other words, we are suffering from a nightmare of a daydream that we are kind of casting into the future.
Yeah.
In the present moment, we can feel tense, having a hard time breathing. Sometimes it may lead to chronic pain.
Oh yes, I had a lot of pain too in my body. Yeah.
I would say that a lot of chronic pain, or even such wastebasket diagnosis as, say, fibromyalgia and other types of chronic disorders and pains, are associated with psychosomatic issues. Anxiety is causing the person to actually constrict the muscles throughout the body. Basically, that's also what we call hypertension.
Yes.
Hypertension means what? You're really tense. Now, how do you develop that? Well, go ahead and start thinking about something you don't want to experience. You're virtually guaranteed to start cringing. Mm-hmm. When you're cringing, your muscles are tensing up. Your central nervous system is busy sending signals of contraction to those muscles because it's agitated. So your central nervous system is agitated because you basically created a nightmare kind of scenario in your mind.
Yeah.
And you're afraid that it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And the way that we're acting when we're in that state of being is very snappy, very judgmental, very bitchy. And that's really the way that I've spent the majority of my life, is saying, stop acting that way. Quit doing that. And not being accepting of myself either. That's the other aspect of the anxiety, is our acceptance of ourselves and our own life process. When we look at ourselves as an aging person and think that we're still supposed to look 25, I could be really mad at me for looking 53.
And the interesting thing about it is that when we have certain expectations or certain assumptions that we operate on, it's very unlikely that life is going to meet our expectations. Mm-hmm. By default, my life just doesn't meet expectations. Now, if I want to suffer from disappointment and struggle with life, I just need to be attached to my expectations. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's the royal road to creating a nightmare out of my life. Mm-hmm. If I don't want to do that, I have to develop a different attitude. Mm-hmm. So this attitude is directly associated with a particular belief that I would say is rather pervasive. Mm-hmm. And many of our viewers and listeners may be experiencing some degree of that belief in their belief system. And it's belief that they don't have the freedom of choice.
Right.
Now, what does it feel like to have the kind of belief that you don't have the choice, or perhaps your children have to be this way, they don't have choice?
Mm-hmm. Well, for myself, when my children are not behaving or acting in the way that I think that they're supposed to, I have the choice of being mad about it, or I have the choice of knowing that their life is unfolding beautifully. Mm. So I can worry and fret about it, or I can know that it's unfolding beautifully. The choice is how I'm going to respond. If I'm reacting to it, I'm not choosing my reactions. I am only choosing my responses.
Well, a reaction by definition is action against oncoming forces or oncoming energy currents. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, people's actions, their behaviors, their words, the way they look, or anything else, mm-hmm. is an energy event. Mm-hmm. And if we react to it, basically we push against the way that they flow. Mm-hmm. We go against the flow.
Yes.
The other person is a part of the universal flow of things. So if we go against another person's energy directly, that means we are essentially fighting against the flow of things in the universe. Mm. If we get it, if we realize that we don't have to do that, we may be able to respond, which means basically go in some other direction instead of going against mm-hmm. that current. But we have to have the belief that we do have the freedom of choice. Mm-hmm. Yes. If we believe that this is the only way to deal with these circumstances, mm-hmm. then 99% out of 100 will be acting this way in a reactionary manner. Mm-hmm. So what did it take for you to transition from having a belief that was the only way to react to things and develop the new way of thinking, basically believing that you have freedom of choice?
That is a really good question as well, Lama. And for myself, it's been a process of awareness. It's been a process of seeing where I snap and am critical and judgmental, and then my awareness comes to that spot and I realize, oh, I didn't need to react to that, and I can choose it differently. And so for me, it's awareness when I see myself reacting and choosing it differently. So for myself, maybe I can start responding more often instead of reacting, but the places I see it most is when I react, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't need to do it that way.
In a sense, it's reignition of your own pain.
Yes, as soon as I start feeling pain, exactly, yes.
So in a sense, it's like you hit a head against the wall, oh, that hurts, Now let's do it again. Boom. Oh,
Yep.
oh, that
Still
hurts.
Yeah.
Let's do it a couple more times. Boom,
Yeah.
boom.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. I do this, I get this results.
Yeah.
Now, if I want different results, I got to do something differently. So essentially, this is the sane way to be. It's insanity to expect different results from doing the same thing over and over again. So we basically exercise more sanity. We learn how to recognize, okay, this is how I cause myself discomfort and pain, and potentially also cause suffering to other people and living beings. Do I have any other options? And so then basically we start exploring what other options exist. Because sometimes we don't believe that we have any freedom of choice.
Right.
Well, if we don't explore, we'll never discover that freedom. And by and large, people who experience more freedom experience greater happiness. People who feel like they're stuck in one particular course of action or in one particular way of thinking, they don't experience as much happiness. So what we're learning is also how to experience greater happiness. We basically engender greater happiness within others as well, because by giving them an example that we don't have to be stuck in one particular paradigm, we also inspire others to snap out of their perhaps one-dimensional linear way of thinking and experiencing greater freedom as well.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what I've been sharing with my family and my siblings and my children, is that very way that I react to them. If I'm reacting to them in a snotty manner, then they have the opportunity to help me see what I'm doing. I'm asking them and inviting them to give me feedback so that I can switch it quickly. I can bring my consciousness, I can bring awareness to my choices and respond in a loving way, which is really my heart and what I want anyway.
Absolutely, it feels a lot better.
Yeah.
And
then they have the opportunity to see it happening in their life as well. You know, if they can point it out to me and show me where I can respond to them more lovingly, they'll be able to see where they're doing the same thing in their own lives. It's not something we do consciously.
But we can do it consciously.
We can.
To become conscious about it and to develop the conscious freedom of choice, it takes a bit of awareness.
It takes awareness.
And attention is a prerequisite for awareness. So what we learn is also how to simply pay attention without intention, without projecting certain expectations, without thinking that this is the only way that should be done. We actually recognize that things are happening, perhaps outside of our control, or even if they are within our control, we don't always have to be so controlling. We can actually allow things to unfold more spontaneously. Sometimes it works out even better.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the funny thing about it is that there is also a prerequisite for attention, and that is acceptance. We can't pay attention to that which we don't accept. In other words, if you don't accept something, you're trying to either get rid of it, or fix it, or solve it, or somehow else straighten it out, or just pretend it's not happening because it's unacceptable.
Exactly.
So that's something that coaches do. They actually inspire and encourage their coaching clients to discover for themselves what it is that they can do and take certain steps towards developing greater acceptance, greater attention, and eventually greater awareness. Now, obviously, you've experienced that as a result of receiving some of my coaching, and I would love to offer to our viewers and listeners an opportunity to experience that as well. If you're interested in transitioning from stress, anxiety, or any other form of suffering towards freedom from suffering, literally freedom from creating nightmares in your own consciousness about what is happening, what happened in the past, or what may happen in the future. This is an opportunity to take the step in that direction. I would love to start working with you. And we actually have a brilliant opportunity to do that in a very inexpensive manner. Instead of receiving my individual coaching, which is rather expensive because I'm one of the few Qigong coaches in the world, I would like to invite you to participate in our group coaching program, which is going to be a lot more affordable, and it will still have tremendous value because it will literally walk you step by step through the process of developing greater acceptance, greater ability to pay attention to yourself. And you know what happens when you pay attention to yourself?
Mm-hmm. Energy flows there.
You empower yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we call
Yeah.
our dialogues empowerment dialogues. We learn how to experience empowerment. This is one of the ways to experience empowerment. By paying attention to yourself, you literally create massive circulation of energy within your own system. And when you experience that circulation of energy, that flow, you can learn how to be in the flow. And that is exactly what our program is called, From Stress to Being in the Flow. Please join us for this remarkably effective and efficient way to transition from experiencing any type of suffering to experiencing freedom and ability to be in the flow of life. I look forward to seeing you in our program.
Awesome. I look forward to it as well. Thank you, Lama.
Thank you, Heidi.
Okay.
Namaste.
Namaste.